So, as to the matter at hand, once again, deep welcome to our esteemed teachers, Hogen and Chozen Bays. They do not travel much. They have a full load where they are in Oregon, so we are very grateful that they are here to join us. I think some of you know Hogen and I go back over 50 years. We were young students in our 20s at the Rochester Zen Center, but since then he has continued, and at some point in his life married and has continued to practice with Chozen Bays. And so their career as practitioners, especially in the Zen Buddhist tradition, is more than 50 years. And during that time, they have been ardent students as individuals, as married. They have raised a family. They both had careers, and as well as they founded a temple and then a monastery in Oregon, and which is a very thriving community. So again, lots of experience, lots of knowledge, lots of wisdom, and I have no idea what they're going to talk about this morning. So with that, I bow to you and welcome you on behalf of our community.
Great, thanks, Fred. And good morning to many of you whom I recognize from previous visits. We practice and teach in Oregon, and if there's anything in the Oregon Dharma that does not accord with the Tampa Dharma, please just ignore it. So we're here to try to, because of the golden tongue of Fred Epsteiner, we're here, and we hope to be of some benefit. So do you want to start off?
Sure. Yeah, thank you everybody for welcoming us, and thank you Fred and Angie for hosting us and taking us on a little vacation. We don't take vacations very often. So we had a little vacation, some hiking and swimming with the manatees. And now we're back to work. So Fred has told me that you, in this Sangha, you investigate emotions and emotional intelligence, being aware of emotions and being able to work with them once we're aware of them. If we're not aware of something, then it's in control of us. But once we step back from it through awareness, which is the basis of our practice, awareness, then we have the ability to act on it or not act on it. So I wanted to investigate with you anger. And this is on my mind because I just did a series for Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers. I'm a retired pediatrician. And I did a series for Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area. And the three topics that they chose were anger, inner critic, and burnout. And so I just finished that series, so they're fresh in my mind. So the question I ask in classes at our monastery or our temple, and then of the healthcare workers is anger ever useful? So I'd like you to just contemplate that for a moment, and then if you have an idea of a way anger could be useful, raise your hand, and then whatever you say, I'll repeat that. So let's get some ideas about how can anger be useful? Yes.
I like the idea of what is this emotion telling me, and perhaps if anger is arising, a boundary has been violated, and that should tell me that there's perhaps some changes that need to be made or some boundaries being crossed.
Yes. So anger can be a signal that some boundaries have been crossed, and they could be any kinds of boundaries, right? And so, for example, I used to work in child abuse for 30 years, and so we had a lot of moms who were in domestic violence situations. And often they wouldn't leave for their own sake, but if they saw their child being abused, that would rouse anger in them, and then they would have the energy to leave. Yeah, so a signal that something's off. Yes.
focus and notice the other side of the coin. Anger. I may know just quickly what it is, but if I can feel the anger, I have the opportunity to feel the other side of anger.
Uh-huh. So do you mean that if you feel a flash of anger at someone, then you can stop
Yeah.
and then try to switch your awareness to their point of view? Yeah. So anger can be a signal, whoa, something's off in the way I would like to be in the world. And maybe we have a teacher in the Tibetan tradition who's a friend of ours, and he says that the definition of self is defining and defending territory. So anger could be a signal that you're defending your territory. Well, what about their territory or their experience of life? Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
It's mobilizing. It gets me moving.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm stuck or depressed or confused, it's like it gets me moving
Mm-hmm.
to take action.
So anger gives you the energy to take action, gets you moving. If you're depressed and not taking care of things or confused, then anger can kind of pull you out of that. And would that be anger towards yourself or towards somebody else?
All of the above.
All of the above, okay. Yeah, I mean, you could get irritated with yourself because you've been watching Netflix for too long, and you're not taking care of something else. And then finally there's that energy of irritation. Now that's very important, that anger has a whole spectrum, right? So there's the mildest end and then there's the strongest end. So on the mild end, irritation. So I'm going to do the spectrum from your point of view, mild over here. So irritation, what else? Frustration, crankiness. What?
Annoyed.
Annoyance, impatience. Very important to know that impatience on the scale over here at the milder end. And then we move towards anger, reactivity. There's more reactivity and more energy in it. And then we move over towards rage and murderous rage, right? Destructive rage, all the way over here. And in between, there's lots of different variations from very, very mild, because most people wouldn't consider impatience anger, but it really is. It's the three poisons, anger or aversion. Aversion is, I don't like this. I don't like waiting in line. I shouldn't have to wait in line. And so that's in the anger, what we could call the aversion or anger spectrum. And over here is, I'm going to get rid of it by any means necessary, including killing people or just burning down a house or whatever.
Chozen online.
Yes, go ahead.
Just wanted to share online. There was a theme of it motivates me to act.
Motivates,
A few people
yes.
shared that.
So it summons energy, kind of what you mentioned, that it summons up enough energy. Anger has energy, enough energy to move to change something or contemplate something deeper. What's going on here? Or, what's off? Something's off. What is it? An unmet need, or a feeling that you're not acknowledging, maybe, and it's coming up as aversion or anger. So there are many ways that anger can be beneficial, and we have to know how to recognize anger in ourselves. And it appears first in your body. The body is always the harbinger of, whoa, something's changing here in my internal environment. So if you would, for a moment, just take a deep breath, think of something that makes you angry. Something that's happening in the world right now that distresses you, makes you reactive. And just feel in your body, where do you feel that? If you were, let's say it's a person and you're trapped in a room with that person and they're talking and you can't respond. Or let's say you're actually in that situation that is distressing to you. And again, you can't respond. So different people feel it in different ways. This is part of emotional intelligence, to know the body is signaling me that I'm getting angry. So for example, for me in my chest, I can feel a tightness in my chest and my breath becomes more shallow. So you might feel it in your belly, might feel it in your chest, might feel it in your throat, might feel it in your face, jaw, hands, shoulders, neck. So just be aware, this is where my body signals me I'm getting angry. Because that's before the thoughts come in and start cascading. So example I often give is I'm in a meeting, one of those meetings where you've been in that same meeting 100 times, and just like, please, could we just record the last meeting and not have to come and waste our time? So that sort of frustrating situation. And you can think of your own version. And then I'll notice, my chest is tightening, my throat is tightening, my breath is getting more rapid and more shallow. Aversion is arising. And often it's because two people are beginning to argue. And then, which side are you going to take? And then I have the chance to step back and do loving kindness meditation for myself and for everybody in the room. And I can't do the control, as a scientist, but I swear it changes the environment in the room. If one person withdraws from that coalition of anger, that confrontation battle, then it changes things. So recognizing it in our body is really important, and you can keep practicing that. So you recognize it. Okay, how is anger beneficial? Well, no, we did how is anger beneficial. We got a lot of interesting ideas. How is it harmful? Anybody? Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Epinephrine arises and heartbeat increases, breath is more shallow, and to be in that state chronically is very harmful for our body. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, you can say something that would hurt somebody else. Could be a child, a friend, your partner, somebody in a store clerk, and that could have a long-term effect. Cause you to feel ashamed if you recognize it, which is probably good because then you might be able to do something about it, but it could have a very harmful effect on other people. There's a very interesting interview series where a woman goes out and interviews people on the street and asks them, what's the most hurtful thing you've ever heard? And often it's something in childhood, very small, being bullied, for example, and that's affected their heart their whole life. Yeah. So you could cause harm in many ways, including physical ways or destructive ways if people get really angry. So anger can be destructive. So in our classes, somebody else? Yes. Yes. So it could escalate somebody else's anger and cause them to cause worse harm. Yes. Which is why in a domestic violence situation, many people have learned just step back and let it blow over. Don't add fuel to the fire. So we know there are many ways that anger or aversion can cause harm. And you could look around the world and see how that can happen. So even aversion, those people across that invisible line that we call a national boundary, I don't like those people. And so I'm going to declare war on them, or I'm going to try to take their territory, or, those people with that nationality are bad. So all of those are forms of anger and harmful. So in our classes on anger at the monastery, one person who's a therapist said after the class had been going on for a while, she said, I've realized that anger is the messenger that something's off, something's wrong, either here or in my environment, but it's not the means to fix it. It has the energy to fix it, as was mentioned. It has the energy to compel us to join in a movement or ourselves work with a situation that's off kilter and harming us or harming other people, if that's what we want to do in life. So that if that energy can be harnessed, it can do a lot of good, as people have mentioned. So I'm going to do a little piece. It's Hogen's time now. No, I'm going to do a little, well, I'll end with what the Buddha taught about anger. So in the Dhammapada, which was a very early book in terms of the time of the Buddha, and probably contains many things that he actually said, recorded at the time. And one of the things he said is, hatred does not end by hatred alone, but only through love. And so hatred tends to spawn hatred, give birth to more hatred. So anger can cause all kinds of difficulties, but if we recognize, oh, something's off, then we can turn towards loving kindness, compassion, metta practice, and acceptance, equanimity of this is the way the situation is. Now, from that foundation of this is the way it is, and using more the energy of compassion, loving kindness, equanimity, and sympathetic joy, the Four Immeasurables, then we can use that energy to move into changing the situation. And then the other thing the Buddha said is, if you're angry, it's like you're holding hot coals, right, in your hand, and then you throw those hot coals at somebody else. Well, who's going to get burnt worse? The person who was holding the hot coals, or the person who can duck and, maybe one sails by or lands on their shoulder. So he said that's the consequence of throwing anger out there. So I'll do a little exercise later on that's kind of related to what we were talking about, anger, compassion. Thank you.
So let's riff off this a little bit. What's the cause of anger? What's the root cause of anger in your experience? Fear? Sadness? Self? Protect the self? Somebody said something else I missed. Self-centered. Oh, okay. Ignorance? Ignorance of what? Ignorance of consequences. Yeah. Expectations. So when we have expectations, things should go the way I think things should go. And they're not. What happens? We get angry. Things should go the way I think things should go. I have an idea in my mind. I have a fixed belief. I have an assumption that the world should be according to me. That I am the standard by which the world should function. I am a standard by which if everybody just agreed with me and everybody just followed my divine guidance, then the world would be at harmony and at peace, and my life certainly would be easy. And it fundamentally gets down to, well, if you just all agreed with me, my life would be so easy. I would have no problems. So just agree with me, And if you don't agree with me, well, then something obviously is wrong. And I'm going to get angry and change it. And what way do I want to change it? I want to change it so that we agree with me. Bottom line. When we have a fixed belief in our mind of any sort of how things should be, when we have those fixed beliefs in here about the world should run according to me, we are immediately in opposition with reality. And that opposition creates friction. And that friction we call anger. Now, we all have fixed beliefs. We all have beliefs about ourselves, the world, and especially about everybody else. The beliefs about how everybody else should be functioning, doing their life. You know, if only you would, if only they would. And we can turn it to economics, we could turn it to politics, we could turn it to the environment, we could turn it to healthcare, we could turn it to anything. I have a notion, an idea, an understanding, something right in my heart. And everybody is somehow missing the boat. Missing the boat. And some people get distressed about it and cry and collapse, and some get depressed, and some people get angry and get reactive. But as Chozen mentioned, defining and defending personal territory, defining and defending the beliefs that we have about how the world should be for me. Now, sometimes it's a very small me, and sometimes the me is a very large me. We kind of think, well, how the world should be for the people who I like, for the people who agree with me, for the political, social, whatever. And then we get outraged for that larger me. Still, outrage is outrage. Now, an interesting thing that happens when we have these fixed beliefs inside, we have a fixed belief and we kind of know that it's kind of picayune and small. And so the first thing we do is we try to go out and get agreement. We try to get everybody to agree with my fixed beliefs. I think the world should be like this, and I would love for you to come and join me, and so we can both together think the world should be like this. And let's get some more people and think the world should be like this, and more people and more people. And the more people we have that think the world should be the way I think it should be, the stronger I feel that I am right. And other people should die. So righteousness, when we have gotten a collective agreement about our one-sided point of view, and then we feel stronger and stronger and stronger that, yep, I know, we know, and then we go to war against those people who are obviously ignorant, who don't understand what I understand. Now, this is the human condition. This is what we tend to do one way or another. And when we practice Dharma, we have at least the intention of seeing what are the fixed, small-minded beliefs that I have, that I hold in my heart. We can begin to look at how am I trying to control the world so that I am safe, trying to control the world so it agrees with me. And a couple of threads there. First off, if you're born, you're going to die unequivocally. Everything that comes into being is going to fall apart. Everything that comes together falls apart. Everything that is born dies. The very fact that something is born means it's going to die. And so much of this defining and defending personal territory is because we have not paid attention to the truth of impermanence. We somehow think, if I just get it all together, if I just get everybody aligned, if I just get people, if I get this whole series of laws passed, if I get this, then the reality is, it doesn't work. So in Dharma, we say, let's look directly at the source. Let's look at our fixed beliefs. Let's look at the reality of everything that is born is dying. Everything that is born has in part death is in it. All the younger versions of ourselves are long gone. All those younger and younger and younger versions, long gone, long gone, long gone. Even the person who came this morning, long gone. There is no evidence, certainly, of a past without thought. You know? thought about getting up this morning and eating toast and driving here. It's all just thought. It's all just thought. It's all just thought. So fundamentally, if we have a thought in our mind that we reify, that we coagulate, that we think, oh, that is going to be true, that's going to protect me, and then I get other people to agree with my thought, and then we can launch a jihad. So, and Dharma would say, let's look directly at the nature of thought. Let's look directly at the nature of mind. Let's look directly, right here, at the source of thought, the source of othering, the source of friction. And the way we can do that, of course, is not by having another thought to get rid of the previous thought, and then we have a thought trying to get rid of a thought, trying to get rid of a thought, trying to get rid of a thought, which, as you know, it just becomes a whirlwind of confusion. But we say, okay, let's come back to the place before thought. And traditional way is the breath. You do not need to think to breathe, as far as I've noticed. You do not need to think to be alive. You do not need to think to digest. So the first foundation, not the whole thing, but the first foundation of practice is to return to the body, to become embodied in this moment. We're all sitting right here, and we don't really particularly care what the governor or president is doing. We're just sitting here engaged. But then later we hear something in the news and the mind goes zzz. So we come back to the moment when we're really just present. And we begin to build on that awareness, that anchor. I'm just present, just here. And it's not stale. It's not like a lump on a log. It's not like something is we come back and I'm suddenly become the blob. But when we are embodied in this way, when we are resting in the reality of this moment, it is dynamic, it is alive, and it is fundamentally responsive to everything that comes along. But responsive without being reactive, responsive to what is the need of the moment without all that extra layer of opinion. So the Dharma is really very easy. Be totally responsive, be totally embodied, be like Fred. Okay?
You have 4 more minutes.
4 more minutes. It's the problem. You say everything there is to say. Say more. So, I often was saying this morning that be aware of the body being breathed by the body. You are being breathed. None of us need to have any cognitive engagement with our breath. The autonomic nervous system or whatever takes total care of the breath. Total care. So that means that there is a fundamental entrustment in life. A fundamental entrustment that this body is going to digest food as well as it can digest food. It's going to walk as well as it can walk. It's going to breathe as well as it can breathe. And we have a fundamental entrustment. And that entrustment does not need to be based on I believe, based on the mind. It's based on direct experience. We can watch our breath breathe us, and we've been doing it perfectly all our life long. Okay, unfold this a little bit more. In this moment, pay attention to the breath. You can only breathe the breath you're breathing. So obviously stupid. But you can't breathe the breath you're breathing any better than you are breathing it. You are breathing it absolutely perfectly. The breath, what you are feeling with your hands right now, you're feeling, and you can't feel it better than you're feeling. So you're feeling it perfectly. So you have right this moment the perfect breath, the only one you could have. You have the perfect sensations in your body, the only sensations you could have in this moment. And the foundation of perfection, your life. And from that foundation, all kinds of interesting things can come forth and be met. The foundation of perfection is not far away. And it does not have to be created. We just have to, not have to, we just begin to look through our fixed ideas about who we are, how the world should be. And that's there's the samatha, the calm abiding part of practice, and there's the looking into. And the looking into is just seeing what's true, not beyond our fixed ideas. Okay, that's my time.
We decided we'd divide the hour up into 15, 15, 15, 15, so you get a little variety here. This is like appetizers, you know? Or in the store where you get a sample of something, yeah. If you live with us for years, like some of our students, you'd be really bored. Oh, I've heard that before.
So Chozen teaches very practical things that are very useful and very, very much applicable, and I just teach this sort of stuff.
So I'd like to do a little exercise with you, and it's based on the Chinese symbol. Anybody know what this is? It's heart and mind. Heart and mind. This symbol here. So it's actually, all the pictograms in Chinese come from something practical, and this is actually the heart. So this is the heart here, with the two ventricles, and then these are blood vessels coming in, or the other chambers of the heart. And of course, originally it looked like a heart with the four chambers and the blood vessels, and now it's been stylized. So this means both mind and heart. And this is very interesting to me because I think that awakening is composed of equal parts of wisdom, which is mind-based, and impersonal, and compassion, which is heart-based. In our culture, we would call it heart-based, and is very personal, is very connected. So equal parts, and then I add in a sense of humor, because once you've got some perspective on your own situation, you have to laugh. So wisdom and compassion, so we could say mind and heart, which are equally represented by this symbol, which is wonderful. And in Asia, in general, if you ask people, where are you located? People would say, in my heart, or in my gut. So in Japan, there's a saying, a person of gut, a person of belly. So anchored means really anchored, and imperturbable maybe equanimity, but often it's heart. Whereas in the West, we think we're located here. So we're like a little robot up here, located up here, that happens to have these appendages called arms and legs, and then eyes like little spotlights. And we take in information through the eyes and the ears, and then we tell the arms and legs what to do, like, French pastry, let's walk over there, walk, 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 walk. Let's reach out and take one. Let's get some money and pay for it, So the little robot up here, computer up here, let's say computer, is controlling us. So that we have to work with that. That's what we have to work with. But as I said, in Asia, you're located here, which is a very different experience. So in Asia, group harmony is the higher value than individual success. In our culture, it tends to be, I will climb over every person I need to climb over to get to the top and win the trophy. But in Asia, it's more, is the group happy? And how can I help the group? So I used to give talks on child abuse in Japan, and professionals would come, nurses, public health nurses, therapists, law enforcement, and so on, doctors. And then at the end, when we finished the day of the conference, everybody would jump up and rearrange the room. So empty the trash, sweep the floor, rearrange the desks, the chairs, the tables, however it was when we walked in. So it was leave no trace. It was immaculate when we left. And they start learning that in nursery school because they are the custodians for their school. The children take care of the school and sweep the floors or polish the, mop the floors, everything. Go down to the kitchen to get food, bring it back to the classroom, distribute the food to their classmates and so on. It's quite remarkable. So I'd like to give you a little exercise to try to look at this wisdom compassion aspect or heart and mind aspect. So if you would look at something in front of you, it could be the cushion in front of you, just look down. So you're not looking at a person, but look at either the cushion in front of you or the floor in front of you. And I would like you to look with the eyes of your mind. So what does your mind notice about the floor or the cushion in front of you? So the mind is kind of analyzing, what does it see? So just notice a few things about the floor with your mind or the cushion. Okay, now I'd like you to drop from your mind, let's say it's located up here in your brain, drop down to your heart, wherever you feel that your heart is located, and look again at what you were looking at, the floor or the cushion, with the eyes of your heart. So looking with the eyes of your heart. What does the heart notice about the floor or the cushion? Now I'd like you to do the same thing with your hand. So bring your hand up in front of you. And I'd like you first to look with the eyes of your mind. So go back up into your, wherever you feel your mind is, maybe up in your head. Look with the eyes of your mind, and you can turn your hand over. What does your mind notice about your hand? 3 or 4 things that the mind notices about your hand. And you can move it and turn it around. Okay, now, if you would drop down into the eyes of the heart, wherever you feel your heart to be, out of your head into your heart, and look with the eyes of your heart at your hand. And again, you can turn it over, move it. Okay, what did you notice? Either with the floor, the cushion, or the hand. Yes.
With my hand, in my mind, I was looking at the segments and the skin, nails, and the specific things. And when I dropped down into my heart, it was gratitude and appreciation.
So the objective observation, and then down into appreciation and gratitude. Yes.
I was thinking the mind was more analytical, where the heart was more, feeling-based.
And did you notice a difference looking at the floor or the cushion or your hand What happened with analytical and emotional?
More of a distance,
Mm.
or closeness.
So sense of objective distance and then closeness. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Looking at the floor with my mind, I'm thinking more about the process and the supply chain. Machines and but when we drop into the heart, I'm thinking more about the beautiful tree that once stood and the people operating machines to produce such a beautiful form and also maintain it. So it becomes, with the mind is more analytical as someone else stated, and then with the heart is more, well, feeling, emotional, more about the beings than
The beings. The trees and the people, rather than the machines, rather than the put it in a truck, take it to take it to Home Depot, load it. Yeah, it's the people. Thank you. There's somebody just behind you.
Well, very similar with the cushion. I noticed that first with my mind it was blue, and I wondered what it was stuffed with, and then with my heart I wondered who made it, and if the environment was harmed at all. So very similar.
Isn't it interesting, that shift? Even with the cushion, you can do it with anything. Anybody else over here who wanted to say something?
Yeah, they were echoing what I was thinking too with the floor. You know, the different patterns and textures, and then with the heart, it was more, you know, how many people have walked over this floor, the people who placed the floor down, the tree, looking deeply.
The rain, the earth, yeah. So that's something to experiment with for yourself. And especially getting back to the anger thing, when you discover you've done that with somebody, that you've separated, and it's like the mechanics of how am I going to convince them they're wrong, I'm right, and that's the wisdom part. I mean, it's not wrong, totally wrong, but it's the wisdom side. So this is really important. So here's wisdom, and here's compassion, and here's sense of humor, right? So wisdom, if it's carried over here, can become objective, which you mentioned, but then it can become cold, indifference, and cruelty, if it's not balanced by compassion. But compassion on its part, if you start moving it over here, becomes a kind of romanticized view of the world and a kind of mushy sentimentalism, right, over here, which doesn't distinguish and doesn't act in the world. It's just like, oh, I love everybody. No, you don't. Right? And we have to watch that a little bit when we say everything is fine as it is. No, it's not. So we have to balance these two, equal amounts of wisdom and compassion. Yeah. Thank you for doing that exercise, and just keep trying it in various situations. And yeah. Okay, it's yours again. I have 4 more minutes. So when we laugh like that, where do you think it falls? We laugh because, yeah, there's some truth to it, right? And also it's funny because of the human predicament, and there's compassion. So it's kind of a mixture. I think good, healthy laughter is composed of a mixture of the two. But I don't know if you've noticed that comedians nowadays are all based on the inner critic. It used to be, when I was young, it was like Italians are like this, and Swedish people are like this, and people from Florida are like this, and you know, it was based a lot in criticism and prejudice. But now you can't do that, and so now it's all like, I did this the other day, and I was so stupid. So just notice. I tell our students, if you go to a movie, look for the Dharma themes. any movie that's worth going to has got some really interesting Dharma themes behind it. And also watch, another thing I do, we go to movies like once every 3 years, but I do watch Netflix and so on. But the big ones, like the big ones where you're just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I try to keep recognizing those are just little colored dots on the screen and sound effects. And can I step back from it and not get completely aroused by it? Fear arises and adrenaline arises. And can I step back? And I can't. I can do it to a certain degree, but I keep getting pulled into the movie, the excitement of the movie that they create, or the sadness of the movie, or whatever. And it's just all actors. So it's a very interesting way to watch a movie, to pull out and then go back in and pull, just like life. Our meditation practice helps us pull out and watch what's really going on, and then we get sucked back in. And Hogen said something, I have 1 more minute. Hogen said something that, what did it remind me of? I'll think of it. I'll give you my minute for now, and then I'll take it back later. If I can remember what you said and what it put two things together in my mind that I hadn't put together before.
Okay, you can have it anytime. Anybody have any comments, insights, questions, advice? If I had the golden tongue of Fred, I would be able to talk fluidly, but I'm afraid that's Fred's provenance. Yes.
Just say quickly, talking about the balance, I'm just reminded of seeing Thich Nhat Hanh talk about you can't have an above or below, or a left without a right, or right without a left. They go together.
So you were talking about Thich Nhat Hanh's talking about vow and saying that duality is true. You can't have an up and a down without a down, or a left without a right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And so what? What are the implications of that?
No, to me, what your wife was talking about was the balance.
I see, I see.
That's what I heard when she was talking. It reminded me of that.
Good. Okay, so you're referring to Thich Nhat Hanh talking about the whole, that you've got to have the whole, that you've got to have both sides of the whole. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I know what it was.
Please.
And it's also related to mind and heart. So I realize that our students, we have a few students who are really struggling with the breath practice. I don't know if that's happened to any of you, but they get so tied up in it's not correct. And they get, and the inner critic comes in, I'm not breathing the right way, I'm not doing breath practice the right way. Oh, when I try to look at my breath, it makes me tighter and tighter. And I realize they're looking at the breath with their mind. So the mind is analyzing, am I doing breath practice correctly? Rather than with the heart. And so something Hogen said just triggered that in my mind, because one of our senior students is a scientist and, very much information-based, but he's a very sincere practitioner. He said once to me, in talking about students, working with students, he said, they have to fall in love with their breath. They have to fall in love with their breath. So that's heart-based with the breath. So that's something you could try too. You could try breath practice with the mind, kind of analyzing it. The Buddha said, I'm aware, is it a short breath or a long breath? But it didn't have any value judgment about it. It was just noticing. It was just awareness. But as soon as value is added, which you could call the wisdom side, then you get in trouble. So thank you for triggering that in me, awareness.
There's a question from online.
Sure. So question online, which
Are
is?
emotions necessary? Do they serve a purpose? When are they good?
Are emotions necessary? Do they serve a purpose? And are they good?
When are they good?
When are they good? Okay. This is your territory. Yep, it's your territory.
Well, if you think of what we would be without emotions, we would be a robot, right? It would be all just analysis, facts. And that's what they're trying to do with robots now, is bring emotion in so they're more relatable, which is a little scary when you see they can smile, their eyes can crinkle, and so you relate to them. And then in Japan, they have lots of little robots, and they're very cute. They're purposely made cute little robots, and so you have feelings for them because they're kind of like a little puppy or a little child buzzing around. So yeah, emotions help us connect to each other and enjoy life, right? So an example I give about sunsets is, and this is about the necessity in our practice, as Hogen was saying, to go to the place before thought. So our mind has essentially two functions, thought and awareness. And we've grown up thinking, and that's what makes us human, and that's what's going to get us out of trouble or prevent us from getting into trouble. So that's why we think about the past 250 times. You wouldn't rent the same bad movie 250 times, but you let your mind go back to the same bad situation, trying to change the past, which is impossible. And we're not dumb. We learn from our mistakes. We're probably one-time learners. So just say like, I learned from that. We don't have to go back there. And then the future, trying to prevent calamity from happening or danger from happening. But really, our practice asks us learn to rest in the present moment, put past and future aside. Watch your mind, watch what your mind is doing, listen to it talking, and start to withdraw from it and enter awareness. I call it walking through the door into awareness. And awareness, we really mean before thought. That place before thought. And then thoughts just become another little phenomenon, like a wispy cloud drifting through. And occasionally, we trace it and then we realize we've traced it and then we just go back to the place before thought. So, but that's different. So we've all had peak moments where our mind has stopped, like watching a beautiful sunset. And we had a beautiful sunset a couple nights ago when we were up in Ocala. And the mind stops and just takes it in, the beauty of it. And then the mind comes in and says, oh, actually Hogen did this. Hogen said, oh, doesn't that mean there's smog because everything looks so beautiful and pink? And it's like, no.
That's true too.
But then you're back into thinking, right? and thinking is where our suffering lies. Our suffering lies in our minds and our deluded thinking.
You done?
Yeah, so now you have 9 minutes.
Okay, so we are one whole thing. It's not as though there are parts. It's not as though the arm is me and the right arm is me and the left arm is not me. It's not as though the emotions are me and the thought is not me. It's not as though that we're divided into things. They're one whole thing. And you do 4 foundations, right? So one of the Buddha's teachings, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the first foundation of aliveness, the first foundation of beingness, the first foundation of the isness of our life is our body. No body, no life. So, the first place of practice is to habit the body and feel it being breathed, feel it being lived. And then if you're in the body, if we have a body, which we all have a body, then we have movement towards and away from things. We step out of the hot sun, or we step into the cool, we kind of move away from something that's aversive and move towards something that's pleasant. It's sort of part of the body. It's part of who we are. It's the second foundation. We might call those at some level emotion, that we have a response. We're reactive. We're responsive. We're never, if we're not reactive, we're dead. If we're not reactive, we're a lump. And who wants to be a lump? You know, sometimes in the Buddhist tradition they talk about that the goal of practice is extinguishment. But we don't want to be extinguished. Who wants to be extinguished, you know? We want to be fully alive, so alive that we know something beyond death. So then the next piece of the four foundations, body is body, and then you have the sensation of movement, and then you have thought. And you've got to have movement of the body with thought. We are not automatons. There's not a homunculus up there. You know, you need a body in order to think. You need to have sensation in order to think, especially to think clearly. You need to have a sensation. And then you have the ability to think and to see the world and to discriminate, like with language, or discriminate left from right, which is always really important. And then the whole world is the harmonic of that. The whole world and how we see the world comes through our four foundations. The whole world is nothing but a manifestation of the four foundations. The whole world is nothing but our body. The eye that sees, that which sees, and the object of seeing are not separate. So all of us are looking, right now we're looking at my hands, or we're looking at up here, and that which sees, and the hands that you see, and the act of seeing are not separate. And if you think they're not separate, how intimately are you seeing these hands? These hands are never seen out there. They're always seen intimately, intimately, intimately. Everything is intimate. Everything is intimate. So the idea that, oh yes, there's a part of me that's the real me, and another part of me that's the not real me. There's a part of me that I could cut off and ignore, and a part of me that I couldn't, or I shouldn't, or is better, is not being a whole human being. So being a whole human being means, of course, that we have flaws. Being a whole human being means, of course, that we have brokenness. We have total wholeness and brokenness simultaneously, and it's not a problem. You know, our brokenness is a certain kinds of sensitivities, certain kinds of empathy, certain kinds of ways of understanding the world with compassion and softness, and our wholeness gives us an inclusive mind that says, oh, it's not about me. It's the whole thing is actively moving together. And if we look with an inclusive mind, if we begin to look and see, oh, nothing is out there, it's all inclusive, it all is flowing perfectly, exactly as it needs to flow, except there's some work to be done right here. So everybody else is doing just fine. They're just moving according to karma, and they're just moving according to nature, moving according to their life energy. But the only place where there is friction, the only place where there is work to be done is right here. And so may we all do that work together. And that work involves being present, being mindful, opening the heart of compassion, which is always open when our mind is open. It's not as though there's this thing in here with a box and we have to find a key and unlock it. It basically means we just have to pay attention. We have to pay attention and realize, oh, other people's problems, they also touch me. So on and on and on. Anybody have any last comments, or it's not? I don't think it's helpful just to keep blathering on about this. What's helpful is having the confidence and the capacity, having the confidence that each of us can see for ourselves. Each of us can know for ourselves. Each of us can know in our own heart through our direct experience these things. And the foundation of faith is you have even a little glimpse into the nature of mind, even a little glimpse into the inclusive nature of reality, even a little glimpse into the stillness and silence and spaciousness at the root, even a little glimpse, and that glimpse is the foundation of real faith. And that real faith is the foundation of practice. And practice means we all come together on Sunday morning and really appreciate this life we have together. Thank you all very much.